So back in Dover, it's Wednesday morning. 150 came in yesterday, 168 the day before. They're the ones they're catching. Bit of a new trend, a lot landing on beaches, people simply disappearing. We're told that already torches have been seen on French beaches about an hour and a half ago. So Border Force here will very soon, I think, be firing up. And interestingly, when I first started doing this, nobody was talking about it. There was no mainstream media coverage at all. Then they did for a couple of weeks start to cover it. And now, despite the fact that hundreds every week are coming, despite the fact that nearly 6,500 people have come so far this year, the media have stopped covering it. So my real intention today is to get people to understand. When I predicted up to 5,000 people would come this year, people said I was way over the top. We're mid-September, it's nearly 6,500. And we'll talk a little bit about what Priti Patel and the Immigration Minister, Chris Philp, are actually doing. Dinghies over here. Right, we're off now. We'll see what we can find. As I say, lights have been seen, torches have been seen on the French beaches, so we've got a reasonable idea of where to go. The weather, as a bit of a northerly wind got up, it's going to blow hard this afternoon, so it's now really first light that we're going to see them. Well, we found nothing yet. So the interesting thing is this. At the moment, if somebody hasn't claimed asylum in another country, but they come here and claim asylum here, under EU rules, under the Dublin regulations, we're not allowed to send them back to France. By Act of Parliament, those laws disappear on the 1st of January. So we should have the ability to return people. But, and here's the problem, that means a negotiation with the French or a negotiation with the European Union. Immigration Minister Chris Philp keeps going to France, negotiating with the French, and at the moment, they're not playing ball. France, to be fair, has a much bigger problem with people claiming asylum than we do in terms of sheer numbers. And it's not really in the French's interests to make it easy for us from January the 1st to do returns. So we can finish up on the 1st of January, having to decide what we're going to do, and if Priti Patel is serious about doing returns, well, they won't just need Border Force, they'll probably need the Royal Marines as well. So I'm back here after 3 months, and guess what? It's still happening. For all the talk from Chris Philp, Priti Patel, we keep being told, oh, the French are doing a marvellous job, they're busy stopping boats from coming. We have watched this French warship for the last hour escort a dinghy, a very heavily laden dinghy. They've even put down into the water their own rib to go alongside the migrant dinghy. You probably can't quite make out, but there are two ribs there about 400 yards away. And so once again, this is the French escorting illegal migrants out of France into British waters. Very shortly they will cross the line into British waters, and then what will happen is Border Force will come out of Dover and pick them up. But I'm sick to death of seeing all these letters MPs write to their constituents telling them the problem is being dealt with, we're in negotiations with the French, they're gripping the problem, they're not. And there's the proof, and we've watched it here this morning for the last hour. So the escort, I mean, you know, the idea the French are turning these boats around, we've been here an hour watching, not only watching the French warship escorting the migrant dinghy, but also putting their rib into the water, their own dinghy, which went up to the migrant dinghy, gave them all life jackets, and now we're literally, they're about 200 yards now from British waters. As soon as they cross the line, the French boat will go, but the French rib will go back to the mother warship over there to the left. Okay, as predicted, the migrant boat is now just crossed the line into British waters, and you can see, going back at full speed to the mothership, there is the French rib. They've done their job, they're in British waters, no longer French responsibility. As it happens, we're the first boat onto this dinghy, so we will go and see them. We obviously will make sure they're okay, and then we'll stand by until either lifeboat or Border Force gets here. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Very good of you. We're very grateful. So look at this little dinghy. The breeze is just picking up. You can see they're constantly bailing, they're taking water, they're massively overloaded, There are 16 on that boat. We think there are 2 children, a couple of women, and that's about the normal ratio. It's about 80%, 85% young men that come every day. Looking at the headdress of a couple, we think they're from Afghanistan. We've asked them, but they really have no English at all. We're obviously standing by. There's no lifeboat here. There's no border force. And given the amount of water they're taking, and given that the forecast is that in about 90 minutes time the wind's going to be stronger, we'll stand by till they get picked up. They look pretty wet. You know, today not a great day for doing it. I suspect not that many boats will come today. Certainly in a couple of hours time this will be pretty much impossible for a boat like this. Here's the extraordinary thing. Before, I filmed handovers where the French escorted the boats over the line to be picked up by RNLI or by Border Force. But in this situation, we are the only boat in the vicinity. You can see the conditions, they're getting worse, the wind is getting up. What did the French do? The French put their rib into the water, they gave them all life jackets, they gave them water, and they just simply let them go. But here's the thing, no one on that boat has any navigational skills whatsoever. They haven't got a clue where the UK is. They can't steer. They've almost crashed into us a couple of times. And for the French, number one, to not take them back to France as they promised is wrong, but number two, they just dumped them. In every regard, the French today have behaved appallingly. So we're in the shipping lanes, as you can see how perilous this is. They're taking water, they're in trouble, big vessels bombing down. In fact, the skipper of this boat did ring the big ship to say, please divert course, slowly. It just is a miracle we've not had more tragedies out here in the channel. Wind out, you can see the white horses on the water. It's now blowing a 4, it's forecast to be a 5 in about an hour's time or so. If lifeboat or water force don't get here, we might face a situation where these people dump for the French. And I haven't seen an RAF, I haven't seen a lifeboat, I haven't seen a water force. What I can see, Priti Patel has pretty much thrown the towel in as far as anything changing before the 1st of January. And for it to change beyond that is going to need real political will and support up to the level of the Prime Minister. It could be this goes on for years. Yeah. So this is Border Force, Hunter. They've got several of these vessels. I mean, they should be stopping gangs and drugs, and effectively they've become a taxi service, and one at very great cost. So you see, that's Hunter, that's the group of 16 that we saw, that's them now being landed, they'll be processed in the building there, they'll go to immigration, and then there'll be a coach waiting to take them somewhere else. We hear another boat, which must have left at about 2 o'clock in the morning, made a beach landing at St Margaret's. We did hear of a boat with oars, a kayak. I don't know what's happening with that, presumably picked up. So a small day in terms of numbers, but you can see why, because of the weather.